Welcome back. I'm Elisa Ganz, and it's time to create your Once Upon a Time story. This is number 2 in my video instructional series called Creating Your Once Upon a Time Stories. We'll follow up later in number 3 by adding pictures, and then in number 4 we'll talk about publishing. But for now, it's time for the basics. You need some tools to help you construct and build the most amazing story. These tools will take the overwhelming feeling of creating a story about your life or someone you love and make it simple, fun, and easy. There's various tools out there that I know you're going to love, and I'm going to highlight most of these that are listed in the next series coming up. But the foundational product that I want to share with you that will help you get started, that will be there to assist you with all of these other tools, is something that I learned as an MBA student during my capstone project. We were to do an analysis for a company in the market and give them some ideas and feedback on how to make their product better. The company was called History Lines. I think it's the absolute perfect virtual workbench to assist you in building those stories for those family members and for yourself. It provides an instant, fully editable story, and I'll show you a little bit about that later. It allows you to work from anywhere. Anywhere that you have a computer or an internet access, you can log in and work from. It is a perfect chronological format so that you can actually add your dates, places into the chronological timeline that's already existing. It helps you to organize all of the life events and be able to work on unlimited stories. It has a family tree function if you don't have a program right now that you're using to build a tree. You have an upload feature for pictures. You have a map feature that tracks migration patterns. It has social media sharing options, PDF printing capabilities, but I have other publishing options later that I'll share with you. And lastly, it saves and stores your work, keeping it safe. So if you go to historylines.com, you can learn a little bit more about it, but I'm going to share a little bit of a few highlights. This is an introductory video that you can get on their website, or I've actually uploaded it to my website if you want to take a look at it, and you can also find it on YouTube. They are a new Family Search partner. They were actually highlighted as a semifinalist in the Innovators Summit at Family Search's Roots Tech Expo in 2015. But bottom line, it is your workbench. It's easy. You can create a login with an email and a password, or you can go in and create one with your Google Plus account or log in with Facebook. Once there, it'll start keeping track of all of the trees that of different family members and any of the stories that you're working on. And here is just a list of some of the ones that I have. Now, for example, this is my tree, and you'll notice that next to every person's name, you'll see that there is a tree and a little storybook. This is my dad, and so you'll see there's the tree, and then there's the story. If you click on the little story, this just represents that everyone has a tree and everyone has a story. So if we click on the story, it's going to magically appear the story of that person's life. And so this is the story of my dad. It puts him in a historical context on a timeline and gives us an idea of what life could have been like. So right there, it starts this full narrative and inserts him into this through computer-generated algorithms. It allows you, from the basic information from your family tree, inserts the dates, and it includes him on there. It's fully editable. You'll notice that he's on the timeline in red, my mother is in green, and then all of his children are on the timeline in yellow. His parents, above him in blue, have definite ending dates on the timeline because they have passed away. But these are all of the historical events that could have impacted his life. And of course, they're all inserted into the story that you can go and read about. And if you want to keep it in there, you can. You can add personal views or what life was like during those times for that person. And it's all fully editable. So if you click on the edit feature, for this Merwin Was Born section, it'll allow you to go in and edit and add pictures and customize that area. So my dad didn't go by Merwin, thank goodness. That was my grandpa's name. And I could go in there and explain what life was like. I could add pictures of maybe where he was born. If it was a hospital, maybe he was born in a log cabin. and I could just go in there and make it a little bit more personable. Then you can add more to your story by adding to the add to the story link, and you can add a family member, a birthday, death or marriage, a residence, and an event. And every time that you add an event to the story, it's going to add a marker on the map. So that map feature is going to track migration patterns. So there's one event that I actually added in there, and was my parents' move to Idaho. So, and of course there's a lot of moves in between there, but for all intents and purposes, it's going to track. The side benefit to this that History Lines didn't really create the product for was that people are now able to find records and details about life, events, by tracking and going and looking in these places to find those materials to help them build their stories or do their family history work. So it does track those migration patterns, and every little point on that map will then tell you what was going on during that time when they lived in that area. Pretty neat little feature. But just go check it out. It's really fun. So it does have share options. So all the social media, you can share it on Facebook, and I'll share that with you later during my publishing. But one little option I wanted to show you was the print feature. So if you just simply wanted to print it out on paper and put it in a notebook, you'll actually be able to print it out and show it exactly the way it is right here. But I will show you more publishing options later that I actually do prefer. So now what? What do we do next? So I'm going to give you some easy steps to story construction. So number one, you need to set up your workbench. So go ahead, create a login with Google Plus or log in with Facebook. History Lines will actually, as a gift, give you 2 free stories to start. So I always encourage that one story is your story, because we don't need to wait for our posterity to write our story. We're living, we need to do our stories now. And then save one for another family member. Step 2, breaking ground and putting in a foundation. You need to upload your tree from Family Search or whatever program out there that you, tree maker that you prefer. It's just upload a GEBCOM. Now step 3, getting construction plans ready. In order to build a house, you've got to be able to have a plan. And so this is an example of how to create some kind of plan. This is called a mind map. You'll be the subject, and then you're going to dump out all the ideas that you can think of and start creating the spider web of sorts of ideas of where you want to go and how you want to have your story be formatted. And I'll give you some examples later. But this is a great place to start. Step 4, excavating and preparation. So you're going to have to dig up a lot of documents, dig up those journals, records and certificates, religious testimonies. Everyone has, or most everyone, has some kind of religious faith. Did they write it down? Did they talk about it? Look in family Bibles, family photos and albums. Get information from baby books and yearbooks, letters and emails. Past Christmases are great. Christmas letters are great resources for information about what was going on at different times of their lives or our lives. Get recipes. And then step 4, framing your story. It's time to hammer out the details. Start putting together a timeline so you can insert that with all of the other events on the timeline and History Lines. A list of important dates. And a list of all the places you've lived. You'll be amazed at how many insights you can get into your story by remembering the events that happened during the different places that you lived. Make a list of traditions. Families love to hear about those things that you did routinely that help build the basis of a family. And then you want to reinforce your structure through interviewing. Interview the people that possibly that you're creating the story for. And it also could be through an interview process for yourself. And then by asking the other family members. Now I do have a story guide on my website that you can go to and download that can help you out with some of this. And my website again is elisagans.com. Use other available framing tools. Family Search has a little book out there that's great to help you get some basic ideas and dates and information about your, I think, 5 generations. So you can go to lds.org tools and download that for free, or you can purchase it for 50 cents. And then at Roots Tech, they had this family history coloring book in 2015, and I think you can buy that on the LDS.org site as well. And it's a great way to get children engaged in the process of family history. Now, when I was interviewing my grandfather, I needed to find a recorder, and I found an app. We can find an app for anything now. So you're able to get 4 free recordings, and what I ended up doing was uploading those recordings to my computer, and then I can go in and erase the different ones. But it has features where you can upload pictures and different things about that particular person, but no need to upgrade the app. I think you'll be able to get what you need out of the free version. Now, step 5, the interior design. This is actually the really fun part. So after you've actually collected all the information, you're putting the story together, you want to choose a format or a layout that you're going to want to present your story in. So break it down into chapters. You don't have to publish the whole book at once. Take a segment of the life of the person or your life and give us details about one area of your life. So a month, a year, a decade in review. Simply break it down into smaller sections and work on one section at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, one section at a time. So build it chronologically by life events. So start out when you're your younger years, your adolescent, your elementary, things like that. And then it won't take so long. And then you can actually give those sections to your family so they don't have to wait forever to have the full story. Or personalize your history with story formats. Everyone was known for something in their life. So let me ask you a couple of questions. So think about it. What are you or your ancestors known for? What was their passion, or what is your passion? Are you a musician, a carpenter, a teacher? Are you a traveler? Were you a sportsman, a cook? Every person has some kind of thing that they loved. If you engage and approach your story from something that you love, it's going to be a little bit more exciting and inviting for the people that want to read it, because it really will embody you as a person. So some different format ideas. Old McCoon had a farm. Maybe you're a farmer and you have animals and you want to be able to tell your life from that kind of format. Maybe your dad's a jokester and you want to be able to talk about all the funny things that he did in his life and tell some of those stories. Vacation logs, hobby adventure handbooks, gardening book, pictures of garden and how-to tips. Maybe you want to leave your posterity with ideas and inspire them to want to do their own gardens. And so you're going to share about all the ups and downs and experiences that you had in gardening. The war stories, all of those, the hard times in your life when you sacrificed to be away from your family. Your posterity wants to know those things. A crafter's guide. Maybe it's a picture book with all the things that you've ever created. And it could just be a picture book. A handyman or a mechanic's journal. Funny memories. Mother-daughter books. I know that at times in adolescence it's hard to talk about some important things without getting in an argument with your teen. So I created this book, and I actually would be able to write down my feelings without yelling at my daughter, and then take that in a letter format and then put it in the book, put it on her pillow. Then a couple days, or maybe the same day, she'd return the book with her thoughts and ideas, and we could just go back and have this dialogue without sharing any hurtful words with each other. Those can be all printed into a book. Just start small. You can be with chapters, the proposal, the engagement, the wedding. There's so much more, and I'll show you some ideas later. Include a magical opening to your format. We already talked about in the intro about Dieter F. Uchtdorf and about how powerful the Once Upon a Time is in all languages. Well, I was sitting on an airplane once going for business, and I saw a gentleman across the aisle who had a book called Once Upon a Country. And I just thought, yes, because I was already speaking on Once Upon a Time stories, and I thought, just engaging the opening title or the first few lines of Once Upon a Life, Once Upon a Family, Once Upon a Story, all of these ways are engaging. Once Upon a Baby, a friendship. Once Upon a Moment, emphasizing mom in the moment. A childhood, grade school, high school, farm. Once Upon a Memory, a sorority, a fraternity. Once Upon a Boyfriend, a garden, a career, a vacation, a job, a pastime. Once Upon an Education, a classroom, an engagement. Once Upon a Wedding, a honeymoon, a marriage. Once Upon a Grandpa, Once Upon a Grandma, and Once Upon a Lifetime. I think all of these will make it inviting for anybody who wants to read your story. So step 6. What's your story? it's time for you to start writing. Take all of those elements that we've talked about. You've got your format, you've got all of your things gathered, and now it's time to start putting it all together. An important reminder, we need to cite our sources. A lot of people out there have put a lot of work in creating some of these resource materials, whether they're already journals and publications, and we need to make sure that we give them credit, and maybe you've interviewed someone. Now, in my undergrad, I found this tool, Citation Machine. You need to choose a style. Now, I know many of you may not know exactly what style to use because it depends on different courses of study on different formats that you would use when you would publish your material. I would just say MLA is safe because it's more of an English format. But you need to select your citing source. So whether you found it in a chapter in a book or in an encyclopedia or an interview or television or internet or whatever, you're going to want to take that and make sure that that's your source. And so I would choose interview if I was going to interview my dad and fill in all of the information of that interview. And then I would click Create Citation. And there you have it. Right there in yellow, I'll blow it up for you, is your citation that you can easily copy and paste, put it into your workbench and onto your workbench in History Lines. So that wraps it up for the foundation element of actually constructing and building. And then in number 3 of our video instructional series, we're going to talk about adding pictures to your Once Upon a Time stories. So we're going to get into some really fun, eventful things. So I'll see you again in video number 3.